Welcome to the most forward-thinking, inspirational podcast in this reality. The show designed to challenge everything we've been taught. If you've ever felt there had to be more to life, more to existence, then you're listening to the right podcast. Time to open your mind and dive in. This is the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast.
And here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Today, I want to go back to our roots. Some of you know this, some of you don't. The whole podcast started because I wanted to help people, because I wanted to say my piece, because I wanted to share something, but because I felt everything was different. I felt the world around me wasn't quite what I thought it was. I don't know how to explain it, but I never truly felt as if I fit in. Here, there, or anywhere. And one of the things that really caught my attention was a leopard doesn't change its spots. And so this has been sort of permeating around my digital media ethos. Hell yes, a leopard changes its spots. Well, I don't know if a leopard actually does. I don't physically know. But the analogy is based on the idea that you're not meant to grow. That's what it's meant. It's the craziest thing in the world because it says, unequivocally, a leopard cannot change its spots. So we sit here and we point outward and we say, you'll never change. Therefore, I'm moving on. And it's crazy to think that, because implying that one person can never change also implies that you can never change. So if you say you can never change, you yourself think that you can never change. Where we are, this game, this realm, this reality, is such an amazing place. And you have the ability to change anything you don't like. And the fact that you don't like it allows you to understand that you can change. It is the motivation, the fuel to your fire that allows you to change. Sound very Christopher Walken there. You know, the desire to change is the thing that makes you change. I've done better. So I say this because two things are running through my mind. I also came across another post by a fella. I don't want to throw him under the bus, so we'll just give him a short name. We'll call him J. Cole. No, that's a rapper. Let's call him Jesse C. Nudge. Anyway, this guy came up to me. Sorry if you guys hear barking in the background. I'm also recording mobile right now, and the dog is silent until clearly something's being recorded. Then it's loud time. There's a few things that pop up in my head. Now, this is a good story. And this is about two things. This is understanding that you can change your spots. This is also understanding that you're not a prisoner of your past. And so I remember numerous times in my life, shitty things happening to me. I also remember in my life me doing shitty things to other people or to scenarios or situations. Third dimensional things, just, better yourself. And in the third dimension, 100%, it is competition, eat or be eaten by everyone. In the fifth dimension, it's collaboration. So once you elevate your mind, your vibe, your energy, your frequencies, you're no longer in competition with anyone. You're actually collaborating with everyone. Everything is an opportunity to earn, to grow, to become. And that's a beautiful thing. So let's get back to this. I say this because this is one of those kind of like one of those messages that I picked up along the way. When you're a prisoner of your past, you beat yourself up over the most ridiculous things because you look at yourself and you look at your scenario. You look at yesterday's scenario with today's eyes and today's knowledge. And it's not wise to do that because, of course, in hindsight, we obviously know everything. But at the end of the day, every single thing that you've ever done in your life that you don't like is the fuel to change, like Christopher Walken said. It's the fuel. Because there's a million things that you've done in your life that you don't even think about right now. You're not even registering. Why would you register them? Because they're insignificant. We can't remember absolutely everything. So what do we remember? 9 times out of 10, we remember the things that allow us to beat ourselves up. We remember the worst. We remember the worst things that happened to us and the worst things that we've done. We remember all these things because we don't want to repeat them. We won't do them again. We remember how we felt, and we changed situations. We removed friends. We removed ourselves. And if you've never had these experiences, well, that's kind of odd. But all the good stuff that happens to you, you kind of sort of bank that away for maybe later, but you don't think about it, and it doesn't change you. It's the bad stuff that changes you. And because it's the negative energy, it's the intention of this. So when you do something terrible and somebody's like, oh, to hell with this person, they'll never change. So many things are taking place. Again, back to you'll never change. To state that, to make that statement implies that you yourself will never change because they are an extension of you. They are who you chose to date, for example, or who you chose to partner with, or who you chose to do something with. The person that will never change their spots was once somebody that you admired because of who and what and where you were. And then you saw who they were and what they were all about, and you grew through them. It's not to say that they're not growing, but you changed your spots in the process of meeting this person. And if you can do it, so can they, but maybe they're not meant to do it right now. Maybe they're not your person. Maybe we don't have to take things personally. Take nothing personally. 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. Taking nothing personally makes this a beautiful moment, makes this a beautiful place because you see it, you understand it, you comprehend it, you get what's going on. The world is doing what the world does. You are observing the world and acting accordingly based on the information that you have and the actions that you choose to take. You are changing your spots, and if you are, so are they. Now, going back to not being a prisoner of your past, there's so many things in my life where I'd be like, how amazing would it be to apologize to these people for the things that you did back when you didn't know any better? And this even equates to the 12 steps recovery. I don't agree with Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's controversial, I know. It helps a lot of people, and I agree with that. If it helps you, great. But to live in it for the rest of your life is a trap. It's a trick, in my opinion. That old saying, you ever drink so much you stand around in a circle for the rest of your life talking about it? I don't agree with this. I agree with the fact that we acknowledge that maybe we had a problem, we grow up, and we move on. And I know a lot of people will say, it's in your blood, it's genetics, it's this, it's that. Well, that's also your programming. And I know full well, after dealing with what I've dealt with the past couple of weeks, the past couple of months, the past couple of years, my entire life, I understand full well that addiction is a choice. And the funny thing about that is people will argue with me on that tooth and nail. And I'm not denouncing or taking away from or discrediting anyone that's having an issue. In fact, I'm here to help you if you want help. Battling addiction is paramount. But it's not just, the hard stuff. Prime example. It's not alcoholism. It's not drugs and gambling. All of these are negative connotations to quote unquote addiction. The addictive mind stems from a specific set of events in childhood. Overcoming what you need to overcome. And the funny thing too is we never talk about our childhood. We never talk about ourselves. We never talk about who and what and why we are, who and what and why we are. We just simply accept that we are who we are, and we assume other people are the same thing. And so this is one of those moments too where you can't, how do I put this? You can't assume that people know who you are or think that they know who you are. You also can't assume that you know who people are, because you could have met anybody who was having a terrible day, a terrible moment, and you just crossed paths with somebody at the absolute worst time. You can't judge or define somebody. And this is another thing too. How many people are friends with somebody or know somebody, and then all of a sudden that person is completely out of character and does something completely asinine that's either violent, aggressive, or what have you. And then what does the world do? The world says, oh, look whose true colors are finally showing. So the world will paint you with a brush that is the worst thing you've ever done. either at that moment, during that day, in your lifetime, whatever it is. Those are your true colors. And we never even ask about it. We never question it. We never, we're like, yep, that's the way it is. We never think about that stuff. Because it's so much easier just to throw somebody under the bus and just to assume. But what about you? Every single person you've ever met in your entire life has a different story as to who you are, based on how you interacted with them, or how you could help them, or what you could do for them, or with them, or because of them. I've heard stories of people, just deciding that I can't stand you because of how you acted in this situation. And what they're really saying is, I wouldn't have done that because I'm a different person. I now feel that I'm better than you and I want to move on. And that, to me, that is just the trash taking the trash out. That's fine. Carry on. You don't need to be a part of my life. I don't need this negativity in my life. So feel free to vamonos. This brings me back to Mr. J. Cole or Jesse C. Anyway, this guy a long time ago, and this is the story that really woke me up. This is the story that freed me from a lot of things too, because I remember as I sort of stepped into my prowess and into who I was and what I was becoming, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to go and make amends with maybe the people that you feel that you've wronged? Well, two things there. They may not remember you. They may not see the wronging the way you see it, because that wronging told or was etched into your story. It's not necessarily etched into theirs. So there's no truth behind how you may view what you may view. So if you did do somebody wrong and you think that you did and you want to apologize to them, there is a very strong chance that would be a bad move. And let me tell you my story. So I'm working for another coach at this time, and we are we're bringing people in. We're onboarding new clients. We're meeting new clients, and we're doing this, that, and the other thing. This individual, Mr. Cole, didn't have the funds to afford the program, and I was sub-coaching at the time, primarily running the sales department, but sub-coaching at the time, using my knowledge to create certain things. We'd already passed this through with Sam. It was one of those things where I was simply sub-coaching where it was deemed necessary, lightening the load. So the deal was, this individual was going to get a discounted price. And for that discounted price, he was going to gain access to everything that the program offered, but the main coaching would have been done by me, not by him, or not by the main coach. And he was totally cool with that. He loved the idea. He thought, this is great. So we get in there, and he decides a couple of lessons into it, or a couple of classes into it, that I'm not a viable coach, that I'm not what he signed on for, that I'm not what he wants. And everybody's able to have their opinion, to say their thing. And yeah, maybe, that's the thing about coaching. You never know who you're going to get, what you're going to like, and all that sort of stuff. But I remember bending over backwards to get this man the deal. And so he came on, and he worked with me for 2 or 3 sessions. And then he felt that he wanted to work with Sam. He didn't want to work with me anymore. Okay, cool. So he went and said a bunch of random things to Sam, my employer at the time, about why I was an unacceptable coach or what have you. Now, at the time, I was still running my business and doing other things and doing my best to help as many people as I can. When you're starting up, you're doing everything you can. So maybe I was stretched too thin. Maybe I didn't give him 100% of my attention. I don't know. But I do know that in everything that I do, I often do my best to be as integral as possible, to operate with integrity as best I possibly can. So again, I'm not going to completely throw this man under the bus, because maybe whatever it was, maybe I was slacking. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't know enough at the time to appease this individual. But when we saved him over $1,000 or over $9,000, I believe, on the program, you work with what's good. You get the information, you get the message, you get going on this sort of stuff. Anyway, what did he do? He decided that I wasn't good enough, and he went over my head, and I ended up getting fired that day. Now, interestingly enough, and what nobody knows about that day, is I was sitting with 3 clients that I had chatted with over the course of a few years from multiple different sources. But me coaching for myself at the time was almost a conflict of interest when I was coaching for this other organization and working with this other organization. So, and I am 100% always going to keep my word on everything. And so I was in contract with him, and I was trying to think to myself, how do I, how do we maneuver this, and how do I approach this, or how do I bring this up, or how do I ask to be able to do this, what have you? Because this was $30,000 sitting on the desk. So I'm sitting there trying to contemplate this, and then I realize I've been removed from the social group. I've been removed from the group itself. So I sent Sam a text and I said, "Hey, did I just get fired?" He said, "Yeah. Unfortunately, we've had a complaint, and we had to let you go." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Did Jesse have something bad to say about me?" Because clearly this is the only guy at the time that really wanted Sam. He really wanted Sam. So he got the discount, and then moved up. I don't know if he intended to get me fired. I'm sure that wasn't his intention, but he certainly wanted to say enough about me to get Sam to be, okay, you know what, let's just work with you. Let's just figure that out. And so that was the case. And this may sound like I'm being petty by telling this story, but I'm really not. This guy popped across my feed recently, and the weirdest thing was this was 7.5 years ago that this all took place, maybe 8 years at the time. And I saw this thing and it said 7 years strong. 7 years strong that he's been building his current coaching program and all of his operating with integrity and all that sort of stuff. And I looked at this and what he did was, at the time, he gave me a gift. He gave me the gift of freedom from my contract. I was able to get out and completely launch my brand. So because of this man, not because of this man, but this man had a factor in the full launch of the Mental Mastery Alliance. So thank you for that. And later on, I get a call from him, or I see his name on my phone, and I thought, oh, geez, I haven't talked to this guy in years. So let's see what it's all about. So I answer the phone, and he says, "Hey, I really wanted to talk to you about something." I said, "Okay, sure." And he says, "I'm starting my business. I'm starting a new thing right now, and God is telling me that I can't operate this without going into a moment of I don't even know what he said, but he wanted to apologize. He wanted to make amends for his actions. So he told me, he's like, I don't know if you know this, but it was kind of my fault that you got fired from that organization. He said, I went over your head, and I really should have at least said something to you first, as opposed to completely throwing you under the bus." And these were his words, not mine. And he said, "And that's weighed heavy on my conscience since I've done it." These are, again, his words. "That's weighed heavy on my conscience since it happened. And I can't start this business having a dirty consciousness about this moment." And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, because he doesn't know that actually it was a gift, what he had given me. But here's the thing. What if it wasn't? So I said to Jesse, I'm like, "Hey man, with my blessing, go do your thing. Go help lives, go change people." Again, I have a hard time believing that somebody who could do these things and say these things has the integrity to do something that is pure-hearted, because I just see so much abundance of tomfoolery that is taking advantage of people, manipulating situations and systems, and all that sort of stuff. And this is another problem that I have with the coaching industry. Like I'm not against the coaching industry. I am against results not getting done. I guess I'm just against the shadiness of all of these people making all of these offers and not backing any of these things up. So anyway, that's a bit of a side tangent, but I digress, because I'm sitting here with this scenario in the situation where he's asking, quote unquote, my forgiveness, which is something that I've considered doing over the course of the years up until now, obviously, or up until this phone call. He left me with this. And so I said, "Hey man, with blessings, go on, go do your thing, feed your family, do what you got to do. Why would I hold a grudge?" But it dawned on me afterwards. I said, what if this guy, and in getting me fired from that last organization, I didn't have anything lined up. What if I missed a mortgage payment? What if I missed a car payment? What if my kids couldn't get fed because I no longer had money, because this was, because times are tough and everything's crazy. And because of this man's words, because he tried to game the system at the time and benefit himself and get a deal and then get the main coach. What if I got fired from that and I had nothing, and it was the worst moment in my life? And then I rebound from all of it, and I finally get back on my feet, and who knows what happens? Who knows what negative spiral had just taken place? And then I get a phone call 2-3 years later, after I'm back on my feet and after everything's sorted, because in this hypothetical, this guy's just ruined my life with his ignorance, essentially. I just get myself back on my feet, and he calls me and asks forgiveness. Now, doesn't that sound selfish? So again, as he called me, he gave me another gift. His actions freed me from the desire to reach out to other people. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on the show before, but we're hundreds of episodes in, and it's okay to repeat what you're talking about. It's okay to share again today's perspective, because when I shared this last time, it may have been a year ago, 2 years ago. But imagine it was one of the hardest things I ever lived through. And then he drags me through it again to make himself feel better about what he's doing. So now I have to relive all of that pain again because it doesn't sit well with him. That blew me away. And that was one of the most liberating gifts I could have ever given. So once again, Mr. Cole, you freed me from the idea that I need to apologize for my actions. I realize now that my actions were a moment in time. I don't know what people's karma was. I don't know if me being an asshole lit a fire under people's asses, changed people's directions, did whatever. But you realize that you have to have good and bad in life. And that's not to say that I would never apologize to anyone for anything that I did when I was in the third dimension or drinking or doing whatever, or just generally being an asshole. If anyone ever comes up to me and says, "Hey man, this really fucked me up," or you remember when you did this? I didn't care for that. I unequivocally will sit down and have a powwow with you and apologize and put myself back in those situations and those shoes and do whatever I can to help you. If you reach out to me, I humbly apologize. But for me to reach out to you would be so selfish and so rude and so mean of me, because if I had done something to somebody that was terrible and I made them relive it by me reaching out to them, how crazy is that? I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure at some point something happens. In life, nothing's all poofy floofy. So I was freed once again from this. And I'm sharing this story again because I want you all to remember that if you're operating with true and actual integrity and not some shady backhanded bullshit, but if you're truly a real person with real intention and a good, solid, clean heart, you're okay. The bad things that you've done, if you learned from them, will become the motivation to the great things that you're about to do. The bad things that were done to you will become your kindness, your acceptance, your grace for how you're going to move forward in the world coming up. Do you owe an apology to everyone you've ever wronged? No. You do not need to go out of your way to apologize to anyone. But you do need to sit down with anyone that comes to you looking for an apology or answers or anything like that, no matter what the case may be. Even if they're crazy, see what they have to say. Because we don't know how we have an effect on people. Right? Obviously, use your discernment. Don't just go willy-nilly accepting people that you've never seen before in your entire life. But it exists. We're all victims of and guilty of being an asshole. Nobody's perfect 100% of the time, unless you're Keanu Reeves. And the last perfect man in Hollywood was Tom Hanks. And look at the stories coming out about him now. Don't want to get into that fun-ass conspiracy. This life is about changing your spots. This life is about having experiences. This life is about growing, optimizing, changing, becoming, loving, living, and experiencing. It's not about being perfect. It's about understanding that, yes, a leopard can change its spots. That you're born, the best quote in the world from Alan Watts, you are not born into this world. You are born out of this world. Your actions create who you are. The way you reason through your actions help create you. You are a masterpiece in progress, or a disaster piece in progress, or a master disaster blaster faster than Aster down on the Shasta McNaster? I don't even know what's happening anymore. But don't kick your ass. Accept the fact that you make mistakes. Accept the fact that we're all wrong. Accept the fact that every single person under the sun is living through something that they've experienced, done, had happened to them. All of that. Nobody's perfect. And every single thing that you think about them and every single brush you want to paint them with, understand that it's just your perception. Right? And that doesn't mean that everybody's perfect or that, we're wrong for having these thoughts. It means that a person that's not meant for you will cause you enough pain to move on from that person. And when you move on from that person, you've learned something from that person. So do we get mad at them for being painful to us? No. We question ourselves. Why do we stay long? Why do we stay so long? Why do we this? Why do we that? Life operates in such a fun and fantastic way. Like when you say to yourself, this shit's happening for me, there's a huge opening that takes place there. Now, anyway, all that to say, I'm sure there's a million things that people could say. I'm not this, I'm not that. And I'm telling you this right now. When you stop being a victim, when you stop trying to say certain things to certain people, when you understand that there isn't a single person above you that will ever drag you down, know that every single comment that anyone can say towards you with regards to trash talking, negative speak, anything like that, is done because most people are trying to make a name off your back. So when you put a lot of effort in, if they want to cut you down, it's because they don't want to put that effort in. They want to be noticed for shitting on you. This is what the internet's based on. This is why everybody argues on the internet. No matter what you put on the internet, there's somebody out there that's willing to argue with you. So have fun with it. Have fun with all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you need help, if you're feeling depressed, if you have anything that you're concerned about, feel free to send us an email, info@the Mental Mastery Alliance. Feel free to send us a DM. Instagram. Wait a second. Yeah, Instagram.com/the Mental Mastery Alliance. We're here to help. Send us a text, 647-338-1265. Leave a voicemail. Be heard on the show. We've done a few mailbags recently. We're going to do a few more because we're getting a lot of emails and we're getting a lot of questions out there. So we're going to do a couple more mailbags. We got some great stuff on the horizon too. Some really good guests lined up. We've had a lot of fun, and we're going to be back in the studio next week. It's going to be a barn burner of a summer. I'll tell you that much, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll also leave you with this. In the infamous words of Red Green, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Stay connected with us directly through the mentalmasteryalliance.com. You can also join the discussion on Instagram at instagram.com/the Mental Mastery Alliance. Let the team know you're listening by using the hashtag TMMA or tagging us at the Mental Mastery Alliance. To have your voice heard on the show, leave a voicemail or send a text to 647-338-1265. Long distance charges may apply. If you love us, leave us a review. If you hate us, you spend your time in weird ways, but also leave a review. Every review on iTunes tickles the algorithm, helping us grow. Until next time, unity over division. This concludes the most surreal portion of your day.
You got it, Pontiac.